Castle, if Castle does, bringing on the RPG Maker madness. I've got some interesting, like, figuring out how I want to do the instancing, which is just going to be called common events, and then use a common event, which is called for opening chests, grabbing items, using its instancing. Basically, it's the best way that this engine can actually do it. So, trying to take full advantage of it, even if it's just something that's a little bit weird, like a sound effect that plays whenever you get an item, consistency type stuff, which I really wish was a little easier on this, because if this is something that's teaching people, the basic art of level of game design, uh, consistency is like one of the big ones, one of the big things that you have to kind of nail, and having an engine that is sort of new for like younger people who are just getting into game design, their first experience is a tool that actually makes one of the most important things to do difficult. It should be actually nailed into your head, like, hey, make sure that you instance as much as you possibly can, because it makes everything easier and more consistent. And also making it so that this guy just kind of having a little bit of fun with the dialogue. So like, he says something a little bit different if you walk up to him, you click him, and stuff like that. So at that point, I kind of have an idea of what I'm going to do as far as the entities, and that I gridded out a gigantic world space, and like, basically what I'm doing is what would be referred to as a block mesh in more complex level design tools. I'm blocking out the world, basically. And that just means getting an idea for the feel of it. But when I started working on this, well, it feels cool, but at the same time, it doesn't feel quite right. Like, it doesn't, I don't know. So I build the whole world out, doing as much as I can, probably overkill. I mean, for goodness sakes. In fact, you know what? I'm gonna time lapse this time lapse, because uh the scope on this just need I end up just going through and completely rescoping this, because even though it was being modeled after the original Zelda, even the original Zelda has a pretty big world, and for what I need to accomplish, is totally not necessary to go that far. I mean, so I'm gonna sit back and watch this, and if I talk, I'll sound like a chickmunk. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody! The reason why I used a grid like this is because it's sort of a way for me to make sure that every area has its own frame. I want every area to feel kind of like a separate and cool, interesting spot. I don't want to have like a big open space with like just grass or something. I want every, like, if I was to take screenshots of the game, I can just go to each one of these, and every one of them is its own snapshot of cool. So these markings here, those are buildings. I totally sound like a chipmunk right now, don't I? Maybe I don't. But if you see this little tiny thing here, that's what the entire rest of the world will look like. I don't know, though. I end up pulling back on scope. It seems like the biggest enemy with this engine is that it's so easy just to like try and do something totally out of whack that's totally unfinishable. It's a really fun engine, though, and I really, really, really love the art. You know, that. Oh no, am I saying you know too much now? I hate when I do that. That real old school look, but the graphics, like the pixel art, is fantastic. I'm not even really sure how the pixel art is done to the level of quality that it is done uh, in RPG Maker. Like you look at some of the characters, and it doesn't even look like it's possible that it could have been done by hand. Each pixel, I don't know, just incredible skill. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, why would you downsize this? I'll tell you why I downsized it. There's a limitation of 200 entities per area. I can only have so many objects. I'm already limited. And just looking this over, there's just no way I can do what I want to do. I may even have to downscope it even more. Basically, what I would like is something that's really, really straightforward, like Final Fantasy Mystic Quest or something like that. In fact, that may actually be ultimately what this will end up. Except you can have 4 people in your party, and maybe there'll be a couple of like little tidbits more than that. But Final Fantasy Mystic Quest actually seems pretty dead on what you can do with this without having to even really break a sweat. This is me copying stuff from other levels. Yeah, now I'm starting to kind of like flesh things out a little bit more to get a better idea. But then I spend a while kind of just getting the process down. Sometimes the beginning of working on stuff, you spend more time just getting the process down than you do actually getting anything done, and that's exactly what this is right now. Like, I'm just kind of poking around with the tools and seeing what I can come up with. A brief interruption, but nothing too crazy. Now, the grass is where you get random encounters. I'm going to try and do that. So, a little bit of a Pokemon and Final Fantasy Mystic Quest meets Zelda. Everything sounds out of scope. Like, it's just too much. So now I wonder if there's a way, like a terminology for creating content in the same way that the player consumes content. And I think maybe that would be the best way to do this, is just to have like the beginning of the game be like fully fleshed out, and then as people play it, sort of watch how they do it, and then make more based on that. Yeah, at this point, this is where I'm just struggling with the blocks. See, this right here is actually kind of fucked up. Okay, wait, let me pause this. Okay, so when you're doing pixel art for world geometry in the same fashion that you do it for RPG Maker, one of the things to keep in mind is that you're staring at the world like this, but it all lines up in a certain way where everything is perfectly square. Okay, so, which I think is actually roughly at an angle pretty much like this, but without any perspective correction. Things that are farther away aren't actually drawn smaller. So, with that said, when you're building a mountain, you have to keep that in mind, because some of the stuff that you can build actually doesn't make any sense, and the human eye actually will pick up on it. So you want to try and get this. This right here is an example of, okay, so it's 1, 2 up, then 1, then there's another one here, and you have to kind of work within these constraints. Hey, look, it's Cubert. So when you're building these mountains and valleys and things of that nature in this kind of a setup, you have to, I don't know, do your best to kind of imagine that you're doing it like this. You see? So you have rock face, ground. This one goes 3 up, and then it has ground like that, and that means that there has to be one here. So what I was building before, the player picks up on it, even if it's totally unintentional, we'll still see it. So yeah, it's just something to keep in mind when building the world, and it's something that I end up keep rebuilding everything that I'm doing to make sure that it does this. Anyway, back to the RPG Maker. So this town right here, I think what I'm going to lean towards is the town will be where you get one of the playable characters, and I'm doing the inn and the shop in as simple a way as possible where they don't actually have interiors. So you can see right now I'm starting to be a little bit more standardized with building the geometry like I just did in 3ds Max. Even though at this point in time I still haven't quite gotten strict with myself yet. Okay, here we go. This is me being strict with myself. And all of a sudden video quality dropping for absolutely no reason. You know what sucks about this is that I decided to rescope everything, and like, you know, I decided to rescope everything, but if you copy all the geometry as is, it I think it didn't duplicate properly, so I end up having to do all that little stuff again, which isn't really that big of a deal. It's just, I don't know, maybe what I'll do is I'll model this just like Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, because that was such such a simple, but it was still a good game, you know. It was, I mean, I haven't even thought about like the storyline or any of that jazz. Honestly, for the purpose of this video or these videos, I don't know, is this, what should I do for the storyline? I'm gonna be a lot happier if I just get the game to be in a playable state where it's actually like, it looks like it's pretty fun to play, and it stays true to whatever it is I think that the RPG Maker tools are are set up to actually produce. I think that would be the most interesting part. It's interesting to see how like it started off as a grid, and then it's slowly becoming. Look at it coming together. Now, if you played Zelda, you'll probably recognize that. That's basically a warp zone where once you can move the boulder out of the way, you have the bracelet. You'll be able to actually use that to fast travel around. So the original Zelda actually had fast travel. I'm kind of weirded out that I even remembered that. So much fleshing out. Actually, come to think about it, like I could have just, while I was working on this already, just like set up and just I mean, if I'm time lapsing like this, I might as well have just recorded myself while I was originally working on it. I want that to be a little island, so like you can see that there's a treasure chest or something cool out there, but you can't get to it right away. And then if you approach the area from a completely different direction by going up the side of that mountain, you'll see like a stone or something that if you put a crystal from beating the first dungeon, like a secret or something, it'll let you get to that chest. Actually, an interesting question I'd like to hear people's opinions on is how well does the original Zelda really hold up to today's development market, consumer market? I mean, like, do people really want something like that anymore, or would it end up just feeling, I don't know, bad? Like, that was my first try at getting a dungeon, but I was like, okay, that's not gonna work. I tried a couple of different things, but want something like that, yeah. Boom, that happened fast. One of the things that I'm liking right now is that it's starting to feel a little bit like you can actually picture this becoming something, a game. I can't remember. Oh, okay, yeah. This is puzzle example 1. Yeah. So this is like a much harder dungeon, and I like start breaking stuff up. I'm thinking like this will be like Dungeon 6 or something. You can get to it way early, but you can't go into it. And the other one's Dungeon 2, which is roughly in the same spot as the original Dungeon 2 in Zelda, in the first Zelda. Alright, now these are the boulders. Now, remember what I was talking about with consistency? That boulder right there is a pushable boulder, which means that whenever you see one of those, it's a pushable boulder. That's something that was always taught in Zelda. If you see that exact object, that means it interacts in this way, and it was a very consistent thing. So it's starting to get pretty fleshed out, starting to see a lot of things. Setting up the second town up here. I'm thinking that one of the other characters will be in this town, and you'll have to do something in order to get him to join your party. I'm thinking a lot of the quests will probably just be straight up kill quests, but a lot of it's really not too hard just to set up. Like, you have to get an item in order to get someone to join your party. The thing is, though, is when you think about like leveling up versus having another person in your party, having another person in your party is extremely powerful. If you think about it in terms of a stat boost, it's literally adding 500 more hit points to your pool. So getting other characters into your party is definitely going to be more important than just leveling up. And I don't really even know if I want the player grinding, even though they have the ability to. Beating a dungeon or something like that should offer plenty. Yeah, so at this point, I'm looking at the entire world. I'm thinking about the entity limitation. So, you know what? It's time to start thinking about making this world a bit smaller. And I'm also thinking about like using the parallaxing, so that when you start going higher and higher up, it actually means that you're more and more elevated. So you'll start seeing like mountains in the distance and stuff. And at this point, you can probably tell that I'm being a lot more strict about the dimensions for how the blocks work and stuff. So this area. Alright, here I go. Boom. See how I just grabbed everything and moved it over? I kind of messed up. I didn't hold down shift. I didn't really worry about it too much, though. Everything that I had already done, pretty straightforward to do. I'm more worried about just not overdoing it or how it's going to feel. I mean, anybody who has experience with making an RPG Maker level, RPG Maker game, could probably tell me whether or not they think that this is something like having a big world map like this is even a good idea. And I'm kind of thinking that maybe I'm approaching this the wrong way. I should literally just have small areas, and then you go to the world map, and then you have a small, a whole bunch of small areas. You pick the one that you want to go to. It probably honestly makes a lot more sense to do it that way. But even if I end up breaking this up into several like small areas, it'd be pretty straightforward, I'll get that right. Okay, so thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more. Next is going to be getting actual like monsters in place and general gameplay flow, and I'm going to make decisions on how much like Final Fantasy Mystic Quest I want this to be. Okay. The evil that